The plot of Mu Shenji Episode 90. In the previous episode, after leaving the Great Thunderclap Monastery, Qin Mu witnessed scenes of desolation across the Yankong Kingdom, refugees wandering everywhere, plagues spreading, and demons and monsters taking advantage of the chaos. However, the great scholars and junior scholars trained by the Yankong Imperial Preceptor were traveling far and wide to treat the epidemic and help the people rebuild their lives. Government officials were also doing their best to protect the crops and stabilize livelihoods. Looking at the newly planted fields, Qin Mu realized that although the disaster was severe, it was not enough to bring down a powerful nation like Yankong. What troubled him more was the origin of the calamity. He suspected it was not a natural disaster, but rather the result of interference from gods or forces behind ancient orthodox sects that had once been suppressed by Yankong. Through disciples of the heavenly demon cult, Qin Mu learned that the entire sect was participating in disaster relief. Many branch leaders had donated all their wealth, while certain aristocratic families and merchants were hoarding grain for profit. The Yankong Emperor personally carried out relief efforts and executed many corrupt officials and opportunists who took advantage of the crisis. However, a worrying issue was that the emperor was being repeatedly targeted for assassination, with attackers including top experts such as Confucian masters, true lords, and powerful figures from the frontier. Upon hearing that the imperial preceptor had not yet returned and that the crown prince was overseeing the court in the capital, Qin Mu immediately sensed a massive conspiracy involving the crown prince, the Great Thunderclap Monastery, and other factions. Learning that the emperor was in Bazhou, 5,000 miles away, he immediately set off riding the dragon Qilin. After traveling non-stop for a day and night, the creature was nearly exhausted. When they were less than 1,000 miles from Bazhou, Qin Mu had to let it rest. At that moment, he discovered a newly built house in a remote mountain area. The person who opened the door was Granny Si. Qin Mu was both delighted and suspicious, fearing she might be Li Tianxing in disguise. After talking, he confirmed it was truly her. She and Li Tianxing were currently sharing control of the same body, she during the day, and the old demon at night. Granny Si explained that she dared not return to the great ruins for fear that Li Tianxing would emerge at night and harm others. So she built a house in this secluded place to continue resisting her inner demon. The two worked together to repair the house. Qin Mu helped make a bed, a dressing table, and polished a bronze mirror. After the long journey, he quickly fell asleep. When he woke up, he was startled to see Granny Si sitting before the mirror, holding scissors toward her beautiful face. She recalled what the old Tathagata had said, that to eliminate inner demons, one must cut off attachments, and had developed the intention to destroy her own appearance. Seeing this, Qin Mu quickly stopped her, sincerely telling her that no one in the disabled elderly village had ever blamed her, nor did anyone despise her true appearance. For more than 40 years, she had hidden her face and lived in torment. This was more than enough. His comforting words calmed her down. After confirming she no longer intended to harm herself, Qin Mu decided to continue his journey. Before leaving, he urged her to rest well, then rode the dragon Qilin toward Bazhou, knowing that major events tied to the fate of Yankong, and his own, were unfolding there. Amid the disasters and famine, many blamed the reforms of the imperial preceptor. In Bazhou, Emperor Yan Feng personally distributed porridge to the people. Using real actions to counter criticism, he ordered the Minister of Agriculture to explain the achievements of the reforms. Previously, land had been controlled by aristocratic families, temples, and monasteries, leaving farmers struggling year-round just to survive. After the reforms, the court reclaimed and redistributed land, applied divine arts and techniques to agriculture, and increased yield from about 330 jin per mu to over 820 jin. The people's lives had greatly improved. When asked why famine still occurred, the minister explained that it was due to war-consuming grain, rapid population growth, and, most importantly, continued manipulation of food supplies by powerful families and sects. After a previous rebellion, many forces still hoarded grain instead of supporting relief efforts. Emperor Yan Feng publicly criticized these groups, stating they only enjoyed privileges while exploiting the people, whereas the reforms aimed to make capable individuals serve society. The spread of education broke the monopoly of sects, which was why they resisted so fiercely. During the porridge distribution, a great monk and an old Taoist appeared, Tathagata and the Tao Master. They sat among the common people, ate porridge, and spoke with the emperor. When asked whether they could truly become gods or Buddhas, both admitted they could not, as the path to the divine realm had been severed. Later, Emperor Yan Feng took 7 divine bridge experts with him outside the city. The Tao Master gave him the Kai Hoang Tribulation scripture, which recorded disasters that had once occurred in the great ruins, hoping he would abandon reforms to avoid angering heavenly forces. After reading it, the emperor recounted a childhood memory of witnessing a nation destroyed by a sect using a spiritual artifact to create disasters, forcing the emperor and people to kneel. From that moment, he had resolved to overthrow the dominance of sects. Thus, even knowing that the current disaster might involve gods, he still declared that if they were gods, he would overthrow them. Despite attempts by the Tao Master and Tathagata to persuade him, he remained resolute. Finally, they concluded he could not be convinced. At that moment, countless Buddhist and Taoist experts, along with Confucian masters and other powerful figures, appeared from all directions, surrounding Emperor Yan Feng and his 7 ministers. The Tathagata sighed and declared that for the greater good, a new emperor must be installed, thus beginning the siege against Yan Feng. West of Bazhou lay a 100-mile wasteland where the air seemed frozen. Old Taoists and monks simultaneously unleashed their vital energy, manifesting ancient deities behind them with overwhelming presence. The Taoist and Buddhist traditions, with inheritances even older than the heavenly demon cult, revealed divine forms resembling historical gods, from 3-headed, 6-armed figures wielding fly whisks to Vajra yakshas. Meanwhile, together with Master Tian Zhenjun, Confucian scholars, and other powerful experts, although their inheritances were not as profound as the 2 great holy lands, they were still immensely formidable. Behind them appeared towering manifestations, divine bridges, strange goddesses, and other grand figures. The officials of the Yangkang court, however, were completely different. Grand Marshal Qin Jian of the Heavenly Strategy used dual maces as his divine form. Monk Yuan Kong manifested as an ascetic bound in chains. The king of Mount Tai wielded 9 dragons in reverence to Mount Tai. Sikong Wei Pingbo embodied water management as his divinity, while Situ Shu Yuqing took granaries as his godly form. Minister Su Wenji manifested books and measuring tools, and General Fang Ji, who governed military authority, transformed into a war god riding a flaming horse, with 8 arms and 4 faces. This showed that the court's experts did not worship gods or Buddhas. Instead, they treated their own duties as their divinity, using the responsibilities they governed to ascend into a sacred realm. Even monk Yuan Kong only regarded himself as an ascetic rather than manifesting as a great Buddha. An elder monk with long ears accused the imperial preceptor of turning the court into heretical demonic paths that disrespected gods and Buddhas. General Fang Ji mocked the monk's shallow cultivation. Emperor Yan Feng calmly stated that relying on gods and Buddhas was the true heresy, while fulfilling one's duty to the point of turning it into divinity was the righteous path. The old Taoist leader shook his head, saying this was the doctrine of the heavenly demon cult. Emperor Yan Feng merely smiled, saying that if he joined the cult, he might even become its leader. The Taoists refused to argue further and were about to attack when an old ox cart driver suddenly passed by. Everyone immediately restrained their killing intent and silently waited for him to leave. Just as they were about to act again, a second ox cart appeared, then a third. Only then did they realize something was wrong. During such a time of calamity, how could there be so many ox carts? When the third cart stopped, an elderly couple lifted the covering cloth, and 16 figures suddenly leapt out, the left and right Dharma protectors, 12 guardian elders, and 2 heavenly kings of the heavenly demon cult. The Taoist leader could not help but admire the cult's masterful deception. Kong Lingxing laughed, saying it was merely a trick to make a living. Shui Baiye added that before the cult master returned home for the new year, he had entrusted Emperor Yan Feng to their protection. If the emperor died, they would not be able to bear the cult master's wrath upon his return. The 2 heavenly kings also laughed, saying that if they returned a dead emperor, they could only atone with their lives. Sect Master Qi Daiyu immediately shouted that the court had colluded with the heavenly demon cult and called for everyone to exterminate demons. As the cry to kill rang out, the 4 great factions clashed in chaotic battle, shockwaves flattening forests and mountains. This battle was even more intense than the suppression of rebellion years ago. as most of the Taoist and Great Thunderclap Monastery experts had mobilized. While the Court and Heavenly Demon cult only had about half their forces and also had to face the Taoist leader and the Tathagata. As the battle erupted, casualties immediately occurred. The long-eared monk confronted General Fang Ji, one wielding the supreme Buddhist combat techniques. The other the ruthless battlefield killing arts of a seasoned general. Seas of blood and blazing war collided with Buddha and slaughtering God in violent conflict. The monk continuously unleashed mantras and Buddhist seals. But Fang Ji did not dodge, enduring severe injuries in exchange for counterattacks. His 8 arms struck simultaneously, severing limbs, piercing chests, and slashing throats within a few moves, finally impaling his opponent and suspending him in the air. When the monk asked why he did not evade, Fang Ji replied that on the battlefield, killing only required 1 or 2 moves, dodging merely meant fighting the enemy on their terms. He then smashed the opponent with his shield, but was soon heavily wounded by other monks, forced to the ground, and suppressed beneath an 18-tier pagoda. Elsewhere, Master Hengyan blocked monk Yuan Kong and urged him to return to the righteous path. Yuan Kong shouted that as long as one held Buddha in their heart, true enlightenment could never be achieved. He used military law as chains to bind himself, believing only by breaking those chains could he attain true realization. The two immediately engaged in fierce combat. Taoist elders unleashed the 14 heavenly Tao swords, their sword light covering the sky. Shui Baiye, along with the 2 heavenly kings and 12 elders, formed a grand formation to counter them. As longtime rivals, both sides knew each other's methods well. On another front, the Grand Marshal, ministers, and other officials were surrounded by experts from the Great Thunderclap Monastery. Only Emperor Yan Feng was left, about to advance with Tian Zhenjun and Qi Daiyu when the Tathagata stopped them, telling them to assist elsewhere and leaving the emperor to him and the Taoist leader. Emperor Yan Feng erupted with dragon qi, his roar shaking the heavens as a true dragon manifested among the clouds. The Taoist leader stepped forward, using the 14 heavenly Tao sword to repel it, saying he had only mastered half of the final move but still wished to test the 9 dragons emperor technique. At the same time, the Tathagata cast a golden bowl into the air, its radiance forming 20 layers of heavens filled with Buddhas, declaring he would use the highest level of the Golden Light Mahayana Sutra to challenge the emperor's ultimate art. Both the Tathagata and the Taoist leader were invincible figures of the previous generation. If the divine bridge had not been broken, they would have long ascended. Although Emperor Yan Feng was a genius of his era, controlling 9 dragon veins and standing at the peak of Yangkong, he was still a step below them. Against either one alone, he could retreat unscathed, but against both together, he was pushed to the brink of death. He activated the 9 dragons emperor technique, sending 9 true dragons roaring downward. The Tathagata's golden bowl formed 20 heavens to block them, while the Taoist leader prepared his final half move to finish the battle. At that critical moment, 2 figures suddenly appeared in mid-air, Ma Yi and the blind elder. Ignoring the decisive battle entirely, they simply asked if anyone had seen a beautiful woman, the former wife of the heavenly demon cult's leader. The blind elder rambled that within her body resided the old demon Li Tianxing, and if her body were taken, chaos would engulf the world. Ma Yi had to repeatedly urge him to get to the point. When no one had seen her, the two prepared to leave. Shui Baiye hurriedly called for help, but Ma Yi bluntly replied that finding the person was more important than saving the emperor. The blind elder added that emperors could be replaced, but if Li Tianxing escaped, it would be a catastrophe. The two then vanished, leaving everyone stunned. The battle resumed, the Tathagata's golden bowl suppressed with 2 layers of heaven, while the Taoist leader's sword intent transformed into heaven, earth, stars, and all things, pushing the Tao to its limit. Emperor Yan Feng elevated the 9 dragons emperor technique to divine level, unleashing countless divine abilities, from Taoist sword techniques to supreme combat arts, each strike capable of overturning mountains and seas. Though praised as a genius worthy of founding his own school, he was gradually overwhelmed, his defenses shattered, his body covered in wounds. The Tathagata seized the moment, suppressing him with the golden bowl, while the Taoist leader shattered his techniques one by one. Seeing the imperial preceptor had not appeared, the Tathagata urged a swift conclusion and struck with a palm that manifested as 5 mountains to suppress him. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Qin Mu rode the dragon Qilin at full speed, urging it on with promises and threats. He soon encountered Ma Yi and the blind elder and told them the emperor was about to be killed. They dismissed it as trivial, saying emperors had always been replaceable, while Li Tianxing was the real threat. Only after learning Qin Mu had found Granny Si did they relax. Qin Mu begged them to save the emperor. They judged that with the strength of the Tathagata and Taoist leader, the emperor was likely already dead, but eventually agreed to go, joking they would at least retrieve the corpse. Back on the battlefield, Emperor Yan Feng, gravely wounded, continued to fight alone against two supreme experts. Though his vitality remained strong, it was merely a final flare before extinction. The Tathagata and Taoist leader both knew one more move would end him. At that moment, a bamboo staff suddenly struck. The Taoist leader raised his sword to block, and the Tathagata turned his golden bolt to defend. After a deafening clash, the blind elder stepped back, laughing and praising their superior cultivation. When the two turned around, Emperor Yan Feng had already been taken away by Ma Yi. They did not pursue. The Tathagata only sighed, saying the emperor's vitality was exhausted and his spirit shattered. Even if saved, he would be crippled for life. In the distance, Qin Mu anxiously waited when suddenly a body was thrown onto the dragon Qilin. The blind elder's cheerful voice echoed from afar. "More. Here's the corpse you wanted."